screens at all the faces. Lovely. And the names. Lovely to see you, Sarah. Loads of coach. So actually, Katie, you're down as me in your screen. So just one of the things if we can, there's a bit of logistics tonight because we're putting people into pods. So one of the things we just need you to do is make sure that your name is written in is on your little thumbnail. So to do that, if your name is up there, great, but like Katie just had my name there. So if you need to change it, you just hover over your thumbnail and hover over it. The 3 dots will appear and you'll be able to see rename there if you need to change it if it's not your name, because we've put you in according to your name into the pods, so there will be confusion otherwise.
It also needs to be the first name and the last name, because we have some people with the same names.
Oh, so, right, great. Okay, so yeah, some of you, like Maura, I see Maura, you just have your first name there, if you can see. So if you wouldn't mind changing, putting in your full name. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Dean. Okay, so let's start. And as people come in, people are still coming in. If you want to put into the chat, where you're coming in from, great to know this spread of the waters around the planet, the water system, and also like how's Samhain going for you? About 3 words, give us 3 words to how is Samhain? Do you feel you're in it? Is the Collier kicking your ass? Or are you kind of like, oh, I'm not really feeling her? Just let us know. So where you're coming in from, who is coming in from South Sligo, because that's where I'm originally from. I just saw there. Sharon O'Halloran, you're South Sligo. That's where I'm from. Nice to see that part of the country covered. Yeah, so it's lovely. I will have a look at, see, loving the Collier. Oh my God, I'm dying to hear more about that. From Brazil, lovely. Slowing down, being quiet, great. Enjoying Samhain. Oh, so some people are enjoying Samhain. Yeah, Samhain is exhausting. So we've got lots of different experiences of Samhain, which is always the way. She's not as scary as I thought, Eileen. Yeah, she's not as scary. Well, yeah, once you, as you say, when you surrender, she's not so scary. Lovely. Dark days, crazy dreams. Yeah, Teen, you were talking about having crazy dreams as well. Okay, so yeah, so it's lovely to see what everyone else is kind of experiencing. And maybe some of you haven't connected, if it's like you're not in it yet, and that's fine too. Feeling a fight between the masculine and feminine. Oh yeah, I know that one. It is strong. That says it all. Carol, great to see you in from Sedona. Great. Yeah, so you've been working with the, if you've been doing the practice, just working with more resting and dropping more into that, picking up the feminine pole. So it's lovely to see how people are working with that, which is great. So I'm going to have a look at that when you go into the pod. So let's just land now together. So let's orient ourselves in this time and space. So just close the eyes. My great teacher, Naveen, in Katona Yoga, she talks about the importance of orienting ourselves in time and space. And that's a mystical, practical thing to do, which I think is great, because if we don't organize and orient ourselves, then we get our lives kind of fall into kind of disarray. So let's orient ourselves in time and space now, and we bring in the different directions and the cauldrons that we'll work with through the whole year. So as you close your eyes, just really sensing into space, the space you're in right now, the room you're in your home or in somebody else's home or wherever you are. And the part of the planet you're on. So we're all picking up different pieces around the planet, like this river system that came to me. So where on the planet, where in your home, and how is it? Is it warm? Is it cold? How are you in this space? The temperature. Is it a comfortable space? Does it feel like you can relax into it? Is it not? And just welcoming everything. And then dropping into time. So space is more vertical, time is more, sorry, space is more horizontal, time is more vertical. So time, what time in your life are you at? Are you like me, moving into the crone? Are you young and more in the maiden? Are you mother? Where are you? Locate yourself in time in your stage of your life. Even in the season of your life. Are you in Samhain? Are you in winter solstice? Are you in, well, not really, it's more the seasons, 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And then right now in this, where are you in time in the day? So I'm in the evening here, but maybe you're in the early morning, you're in the middle morning, middle of the night. If you're in Japan, don't know if we've got Japan here tonight. So locate yourself in time and space. And then bring your attention down to into your first cauldron, the cauldron of your womb, and drop a grounding cord from there into the earth. So locate yourself energetically in connection with the earth. And as you drop that grounding cord in, feel its weight and pulling you down and anchoring you into Mother Earth. And find there's a spiral that comes back up, a spiral of energy that spirals back up through your vertical line, through the spine and up into the center of the head. And from the center of the head, extend that cauldron in your head, from the middle of your brain, extend like a really thin silver cord up into deep space. Connect with Father Sky, your infinite self, boundless, beyond time, beyond space. And then connect this divine with the human at the center of your heart, your cauldron of the heart, spiraling from the earth and from deep space, from the field of pure potential. And then bring your attention out and behind you. This is your past. This is your ancestors. And really sense yourself in connection to your past. It informs you. It does not have power over you, but it informs you in this moment. And then extend your attention out in front, your descendants, your potential. And feel yourself now north and south, heaven and earth, been pulled in both directions, forward and back, behind you, in front of you. And then to your right, beyond your right collarbone, drawn out to the right. So you really inhabit your masculine, healthy masculine, your paternal lineage. And then your left collarbone out to the left, really inhabit your fullness by letting that collarbone move out to the left, your feminine, which is really what we're working with in Samhain at this dark half of the year. But now let yourself be drawn in all of those directions so that you become full and you land into you. Put yourself at the center of your circumstances. open up that space of the fifth province, the center of your heart, the portal into your soul, and fill up, become a sphere of influence in the world by filling yourself up, being here fully. And then from this place, just welcome everything that's here, no matter what is arising in your life, in your thinking mind, in your feeling state. Whatever is here is really welcome. This campfire that we gather around together is a place where everything is welcome, where nothing is denied or pushed away. And we sit around this campfire of Samhain together, all these women, and we create this river system around the world, water system flowing, converging together here. So just welcome yourself first before we even move any further into this call. Welcome yourself to this virtual campfire. You're so welcome here. We're just taking up our position like our ancestors did, like women have done for eons. And then just see if there's one thing you can name about your experience of this moment, just one thing to yourself, so you name it, to be present to it. Whatever you notice, name it to welcome it. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and see all the great women here. Okay, so lovely to see you all. How many have we got on? So we have 103. Great. So this call is the first of our deep dives, and it came about really because of the last year we had a lot of people who went into pods around when we did a whole thing around COVID, and that seemed to really, people really wanted to, or really found that useful. The other thing was that just, you know, on the 21st, on the autumn, or the winter solstice, the 21st of December, we are moving into the age of Aquarius. There's massive shifts happening in the astrology. Sure, there's some of you that are astrologers here. The great thing is we're going to have our winter solstice on that night or that day. It's going to happen about an hour after the big astrological shift happens. So, but what really is happening in terms of that time astrologically is we are moving into a very big shift, really. That's been happening for a long time, but it's really, that's the day that, I mean, it's not, you know, there's not going to be, you know, cosmic experience we're all having exactly on that moment, but there's something very big happening in the sky that day. So what I really wanted to do in this was really create a space on top of the wheel where women could come together and learn how to be more in community with each other, so that you could also learn how to do that within your own communities, in your own particular corner of the planet. So that's a very big piece, because what's happening on the winter solstice is we're learning how to actually individuate more into ourselves, to know what our place is, so we can be more in the collective. And I'll talk a bit more about that. So that's where these calls really came from, and that feeling of going deeper into the teachings, but also really working on how do we start to embolden and enrich each other's lives, so that we know how to be in new community together, because that feels like that's the age of Aquarius. I mean, you know, we can all sing that song from whatever, was it the 1960s? But it is like, it's really happening. So that's where this came from. So just tonight, because it's our first night, just to be aware, it's going to be a bit logistically clunky potentially, because we've put you all into pods, those of you who chose to be in pods. And it's all done randomly. We kind of trust the big mystery around that you'll get put into a pod that you should be in. And then there are people who are not in pods who've chosen not to be. So that's really important too. And so we will be working with 2 different groups as we do that. The way this call is going to work is this first call is all about how we're breaking up these deep dives. So this call is all about setting the container. So one of the things I'm hoping you're going to learn, for those of you who aren't facilitators, is how to actually set containers and how to be in community in a new way. So you can do this within your own groups and your own tribe locally. So one of the biggest piece is setting the container when we're in order to move into any group situation. You always have to set the container. It's actually the masculine, which is like a square, in service to the feminine, which is more like a circle. So that's a really important piece, and that's what we're going to do tonight or today. Then the next 2 deep dives. So the deep dives will be happening every 6 to 7 weeks. The next 2 deep dives will be about sovereignty. The following 2 deep dives will be about sisterhood, and then the last 2 the next 2 will be about being in service to your soul and in service to the world, and then the last one will be a closing. So that's the journey of the deep dives. So you just get to know, and part of all of this is learning, so you can actually take this out and do it in your own community. So that's that. Is there anything else I've forgotten? Lydia and Teen are here, of course. Do you want to jump in and say hello? Just want to see, is there anything else?
Hello, good evening. It's gorgeous to be with everyone. No, I think you covered everything there, Mary.
Yeah, I think that's everything. So I think that's the bigger kind of framing of these calls and where they came from. So I'm going to hand over to Teen now, because Teen is going to talk about the intention. So intention, again, is a really important piece. It's a masculine. Intention is about something very clear and clean. So that's masculine. So for every call, we always have an intention. In any time you organize, you bring people together, it's really great to have an intention, to go, okay, this is our intention. Because then when it gets a bit confused, as it does often with women coming together, let me tell you, it's great. We have something to come back to, which is, oh, this is the intention. Let's get back to this. Okay. So Tina is going to talk about the intention of these deep dives, and Lydia will talk about the intention of the pods. Okay. So over to you, Tina.
Yeah, thank you. So happy to be here. Yeah, so the deep dive calls are really just to, as it says on the tin, really just to dive in deeper into the topics of the Celtic wheel, but as part of the 3 themes of the sovereignty, the sisterhood, and the in-service piece. So like Mary said, we'll have 2 calls on the sovereignty, where we'll obviously weave in the teachings of the Celtic wheel, but with the view on those kind of 3 themes. And that's really what it's about, so that you can drop in deeper and maybe understand things a little bit more in depth. And that's really just the intention of that. And it's also obviously then to connect with your pod, to have a dedicated time to connect with your pods, and to have the inquiries that we give you to dive in deep and to connect as part of that. I think that's it. I don't think I've forgotten anything, I hope. So
thanks,
over to Lydia.
And then the intention of the pods themselves is to really help bring the material into another domain for you. So obviously throughout the year, we're working with the material ourselves in personal reflection and personal ritual, and you come together into these larger collectives on these calls. And then in the pods, which are small groups, it's an opportunity for you to work with it as it comes alive in relationship with others, because so often we can be in relationship with material in our own verticality and in our sovereignty, but it can change once an external dynamic comes into the field. So it's like what happens with our relationship to all this Celtic wheel material when we begin sharing it and working it with other women. And then also just to like experiment with each other in how to be, how to work with dynamics, how to work with relationships. And we'll be supporting you in that. There'll be resources around, as Mary mentioned there, around facilitation, and there'll be resources around, healthy, authentic relating with each other, and particularly when women come together. Yeah, this is an opportunity for us to learn. And like, I've had to like really learn skills of how to be with other women in new ways. So the intention here is to support all of you in learning the skills of how to be in a deeper, more authentic sisterhood with each other through the lens of the work on the Celtic wheel that we're doing together. And to have a bit of crack as well. Make some friends and, work with all the joy and the wisdom and maybe the rubs that come up with good friendships also. I think that's it, Mary.
Thanks, Lydia. Great. Yeah, so the other piece that's kind of important to say is that this time is a time that you're going to, every deep dive call is going to have an element of first connecting with each other in a bit of a check-in. Then we're going to have a teaching around, whatever theme we're working with. And then you're going to have a chance to go into your pods. So every 6 to 7 weeks, you will have a chance to be in pods, those of you who've chosen to be in pods. You can then decide if you want to meet outside of those. Some people will want to, some people may not want to. That's, again, up to you to decide together whether you want to do calls outside of these and that you organize yourselves. So this is all part of coming together in community, meeting, and then landing in and deciding what are the agreements, our shared agreements that we will put down now. And they can change, of course, but generally you have shared agreements, and that can be part of it. Like, do we want to meet outside of this? Just work with yourselves around that. The really important thing is what we're learning. I think one of the most important things here in any of these kind of communities is that there's a lot of sameness. Like, we're all women, we're all really connected in some way to the Celtic tradition, but there's a lot of difference. And to really, this is where the rubber really hits the road in terms of how can we work with sameness and difference, because that's what's so up in our planet right now. And it's a lot of exaggerated difference that's happening on the planet. So how can we, as we come together as women, be models for, being in an experiment with each other, and how we can be in our sameness and in our difference, and we can hold both. So that's one of the big pieces, I think, for this time and this practice, if you choose to do it. And if you don't, that's fine too. So there's no, it's whatever works for you. And that's the sovereignty piece, which I'll talk a bit more about. So I think with that, we're going to just put you into groups of 3 initially. These are not your pods. These are just random groups of 3 that you're just going to check in with each other, say hello. And it's really just a chance to just land into this call, say hello to another 2 women. And the question is, like, what's going well for you in your life? What's flowing like the river? What's good? Because again, just that we're in such intense times, it's nice to focus on what's good. So what's really going good for you right now? Even in Samhain, what's working, what's flowing, what's good in your life right now? And we're just going to put you in for, how long are we going in for? What is it? Let me see. You're in for 5 minutes, so you don't have long. But just a quick hello, and then Teen will put you into a breakout room. So this is for everybody, into 3s or maybe 4s. Is that right, Teen?
Yeah.
So you'll see, breakout room should now be up in front of you. And if you hit join breakout room, we'll be back here in 5 minutes. So at 27 minutes past the hour, according to my clock. Hey, Ashleen.
Oh God, why is there not?
What's happening?
Sorry, some haven't been assigned for some reason.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hi, Gail.
Sorry, I'm working on it. I'm working on
Hey,
it. I'm
Gail.
working on it.
Don't worry, don't worry.
Working on.
One of the things as we meet as women is that, you know, to welcome that there are lots of mothers here, and maybe you have to jump off or you have to turn off your camera. Just if you're doing that, that's really welcome here. You know, whatever you need to do, you need to do. We're in the middle of a global pandemic on top of everything else. But you know, that's part of being a woman also, is just we multitask in a way that we just know how to do, because we know that that's very feminine part of being that woman. And it's really important to honor that that's really welcome in here. And so one of the things is to know that when we're connecting, if your camera's off, that just to let, if you're connecting with somebody in your pods or in your in a breakout room, just to kind of let people know, look, I've my camera off because I have to make dinner, or you know, somebody needs me here. Our preference is obviously that you'd have your cameras on, but if you need to, that's no problem. We really understand that. But just to let the person, if there's somebody that you're connecting with, to let them know why. And then it's always a good practice just to, how is it to connect with somebody who has their camera off? It can be something that's kind of hard to be with, but just there is a way of connecting always. So just use that. So that's what I want to do, is really welcome the fact that as women, particularly as mothers, that there's always a lot that needs to be done. And maybe it's not so easy to carve out 2 hours for these calls. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed meeting your fellow tribal sisters. Yeah, and also, actually, good point, Karen. If your Wi-Fi is unstable, sometimes you have to turn your camera off. But just again, just to let people know that, rather than just turning it off and the other person or people wondering what's happening. Okay, so I'm going to move into the teachings now. But before I do that, I just want to check, is there anyone has any questions about just the logistics of these calls or anything? If anyone has any questions on what I've talked about or anything, just if you put your raise hand in the participants, because we've got like 5 screens here of women, so I just want to make sure we capture everyone. So in the bottom, if you're on a laptop, down at the bottom bar of your screen, you'll see participants, and click on that, you'll see raise hand. So if you have something you want to say, or Lydia, if you can keep an eye for hands raised, that would be great. Yeah, Karen Kelly, just unmute yourself, Karen.
Yeah, my question, Mari, is I actually did not sign up for the pod until today, and I'm wondering, how does one know what pod they're in? Will we just get an email?
Great question. That's a great question. No, you're going to be put in that tonight. You're going to be put in your pod tonight. And Christine, Teen, I think, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. So I purposefully, it's going to be in the document that you've signed up in, but I didn't make that live because there's kind of that little bit of surprise element of who's in your pod. So I'm putting you in the pods right now. Just keep in mind there may be a couple of people not here, so there may be one missing from your pod. So there's 4 in each pod, and there is obviously then, you know, you'll have the list. Now you're going to have to obviously exchange your contact details between you on as part of later on during your pod time. Out of GDPR purposes and stuff like that, we can't really put that into the document, so you're going to have to be a little bit self-sufficient in that. But you're going to have the list, and you're going to have the names and stuff like that, so you can connect through that after tonight.
Great, thanks. Tina's the magician, sorcerer, queen, princess, goddess of I've never met anybody who can operate quite as fast as she can on all this technical stuff. It's just one of her amazing gifts. So thank you, team, for that. We would be lost without her. Yeah, so I'll just move in. There's no other question that I can see. So we'll move into just about 20 minutes, 25 minutes of some teaching. So up to you, you can sit, keep your camera on, you can lie down on your bed if you have a bed beside you, you know, feel free to get really comfortable, because what's really important about the learning, I've learned this through the wheel, is, and I'm going to be talking quite a bit around this throughout the year, is this is a different way of knowing. We're recovering lost way of knowing. So it's not just the cognitive, that's a really important piece, the rational, but what we're really working with is the trans-rational, the beyond the rational mind. That's the area, the implicit as opposed to the explicit. So we can approach this in the way that we approach everything in our lives, because we've been trained and socialized into this of like, I need to grasp that. And I don't know if anyone knows Ian McGilchrist's work, which is brilliant on the left and right hand side of the brain, much more complex than the, you know, the 1980s was left is the being and right is the doing. This is much more, or is the opposite was what was back then. But this is work that really, if you can just let it soak into you and really trust what resonates with you. Notice if you're trying to grasp it, you're going to go through this whole year. This is going to be repeated, and I promise you what needs to land will land. So that's why I say just get comfortable and let it just resonate. The resonance is, that's really where we want to be more, less effortful, less trying to, okay, I've got all this down, and now I've got all this down, that means that I, you know, my life's going to be perfect. Take it from me, that doesn't happen. It's like, it's just let it into you, and just like you would if you were walking the lands, let the words come from the other world, and, you know, rather than, yes, there's theory, and yes, there's, you know, coming from archaeology and from research I've done and all that, but just let those words move in and see what resonates. And that's and that's a really important thing, because the way I teach this isn't always what will resonate with you either. That's just as important to know what doesn't resonate. Okay, so see what resonates, let it move you rather than trying to grasp it. So get yourself as comfortable as you can be, and if that's like looking straight, I am going to use slides for the first kind of 2 or 3 minutes, but after that you can just rock back into a really comfortable position. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. This is where I wanted to present the sovereignty, sisterhood, and in service, which are the 3 themes that we're really going to be working with. And I see them as a spiral. And constantly, the more I do this work, the more I work with the spiral. So sovereignty is the center of, I'm going to talk a bit more about it, but sovereignty is basically our center. It's our living alignment, in alignment with our soul, with our truth, in this post-truth world that we now live in, which has there's so much noise, and there's so much that we're all being pulled to this narrative and that narrative, and it's really discombobulating. The real movement, and it's rooted, sovereignty is rooted in sound. The real movement is to move into our own sovereignty first. So I become the highest authority in my own life. So it's a spiral inwards, and that's why sovereignty is rooted in Samhain. And as we move in, out, we drop in through Samhain, through this whole feminine half of the year, we connect deeply with this inner authority, this blueprint and code of our soul that actually will really guide us, that really is like a North Star for us, that the more that we drop in there, that's the center of the spiral. So most of us have to move from the outside to move back into that, which is the movement of Samhain, the descent inwards. And then, I mean, Dolores Whelan, who my teacher is, you know, she talks about transformation. The Irish of transformation is Ahrú ó Bun, which is changing from the bottom, changing from our depths. So this is what's happening on the planet. We are all being invited into pick up our sovereignty, to step out into your sovereignty, be centered, and stay connected to that depth inside, because it's a great way of orienting in these really disorienting times. And then once we have connected to our sovereignty, we can move out into sisterhood, into being with other women. This obviously being obviously more out in community where we're with everybody, but in this we're working into the sisterhood, because that's another place that my sense is that in terms of our evolution, we as women are into the third wave of feminism, and it's time that we really work with power between each other, our relationship to each other. And there's a lot of work to be done around feminine shadow. So that's where we'll be going in terms of the sisterhood. And then we will move into service. Once we're connected to ourselves, we have our allies, our sisters who are with us on the journey. We're moving to service. So we're in service first, obviously, to our soul. So that's actually a moving back into sovereignty, but we're also in service to this world that's emerging, this new world that is emerging through these small little tiny places around the planet. But every single one of you are here because you're in. I know it maybe it's not, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but my sense is that every woman on the planet is here to be in service to something new that's emerging in the female form, holds a lot of deep wisdom. So those are the three themes we'll be working with. This will be threaded through the whole year, but that's how I see them right now. And we're always moving in and moving out of that spiral, knowing when we need to come back and connecting with our sovereignty, knowing when it's time to move out in service or be with our sisters. So that's how I see it. And just to bring in that image of the Celtic spiral. And then the image that I come up with this year really came to me was, you know, the rivers of water, the bodies of water, like a river system around the planet. And this was a kind of image that came to me because it's like this power of these rivers all converging together. And as we come together from the different parts of the planet, we gain power, we become more powerful, like the rivers become more powerful. And if you look at these photographs, we're like fractals, you know. So this is like, when I look at this, it looks like a tree. It also looks like a leaf. And so there's so many, if we think about like you, the individual, as you move into the we, the collective, that we can be both. And it's not like we're not all trying to be sitting in circle and trying to everybody make decisions together. This is a time when we have to own our I, which is the sovereignty, and the we, which is the sisterhood or being in community. And that is a really important, it's no longer we're just absorbed in the we have to be both in the strong I, which is maturing our ego, and then we can step into the we and be in service. But that we are all fractals of the whole system. And a fractal, I don't know if, in case you don't know what a fractal is, it's like in nature, the fractals are that everything is made up of, it's like in sacred geometry, there is like the golden ratio, it goes on infinitely, and it's from the very, very nano micro right up into the infinite. There are these patterns in nature that are the same, and they're like fractals, so it's the same shape, shape that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger out into infinity and goes smaller and smaller and smaller. So we're like, each one of us are fractals of the system, of our families, of our communities, of our workplaces, of our countries. out into infinity. So whatever happens in our system is happening in the bigger system. And then this is the lovely Ganges. So if you can see, these are the bodies of water. I love these images, but we are bodies of water. We're made up of water. Women have always, and that feminine have always been associated, particularly in the Celtic tradition, with water, not just in the Celtic tradition, because we can flow around, that's the feminine. It's very, and it connects, it's very relational. And then, feminine wisdom spelled wrong. Like the bodies of water, women always gathered in the Celtic tradition. Women gathered at wells, at bodies of water, in order to gain wisdom. So that's, again, it just felt like all of that was what I wanted us to just drop into that picture, those images of us, that sense of us as you are a powerful force in the world. You are this body of water, and you actually, the more that we come together, hopefully that in our coming together, you will even strengthen more and become more powerful, and become, really drop into your Banfasa, which is in the Celtic tradition. The Banfasa is the woman of knowledge. She's she takes different shapes and forms depending on the folk tradition, or the folklore, but your Banfasa, I really believe that every single one of us has a Banfasa inside us, which is just has so much wisdom and power, and it's a great archetype to work with. So we'll be working with that archetype through the year as well. So then I had kind of was looking up river systems and everything, and I came across this word confluence. So confluence is to flow together, to merge together. And I thought this is what we're doing. We're merging together. And as we merge together, we have greater influence in the world. So we're influencing all the little area around us, our tribes, our families. But that felt really important, that sense of confluence, merging, flowing together. That's what that word means. Con is with, and fluence is flowing. So to confluence, to come together, and are confluencing, bringing all our wisdom together. We're coming into the collective, and then hopefully we can influence our world and our particular corner of the planet. So I will take a breath there and let me know if anyone. I'm done with the slides now. So yeah, anyone have anything they want to ask about that, or say, or any comment that you'd like to make? You can just probably unmute yourself. I suspect you're not all going to shout together.
Mary, I love that insight about confluence to influence, and it reminded me of the Essene teachings and the mastery of feminine being the teacher student, and that never-ending effortless flow, which creates this beautiful spiral of upward enlightenment, and how as women, when we come together and we master this, that there's no hierarchy, and that we create these huge vortices of energy, and it's stunning, really beautiful. So lovely analogy with the river and the flow. And it reminds me also of what my mum said to me when we were starting her story, and she said, women are like water, will always find a way. The water will keep flowing, it'll always keep weaving, finding a way to do things. So thank you, that was stunning.
Gorgeous. Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, great. That just image came to me when I was in the water one day, literally swimming in the water, of just the power of these rivers coming together, these tributaries coming together. So yeah, and I love that connection into the Essenes. One of the things I'm inquiring about is how the Essenes, so the Essenes were, for those of you who may not know, the Essenes were part of the Jesus and Mary Magdalene. They were a sect really at that time. Do you want to say any more about it, Melanie?
Yeah, I suppose they were the community, or that guided Yeshua, but very much a team of masters hundreds of master souls who all incarnated together, and there was complete harmony between masculine and feminine. They mastered it. There was no hierarchy between the sexes, and everybody had unique skills and gifts to bring to the table. So really enlightened way of being, and a way of being in community.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so I'm really curious about where the Celts met the Essenes. I have a feeling that they did. And Mary Magdalene came to the south of France. There's something there, so that's something I want to go down that route. But anyway, we won't go there or we'd be here all night. But it does come into the sovereignty piece. So I'll just check if anyone else has any question or anything. So what's really important in these calls is every one of you have wisdom. And so yes, I'm here to teach, but I'm also really want to hear your wisdom, because I have no doubt when you speak, you'll land something for somebody that I wouldn't. And that's the collective intelligence of this group. So just, and also it's a great time to work with what is the word? Trusting your voice. Because this is really important. We have stuff we need to say now as women, and this is a safe place to start practicing that, and knowing when to speak, and knowing the power of not speaking and the power of speaking are equally important. So just, it's a good place to kind of practice that. So yeah, that's an invitation to you for the rest of the year. Okay, so let me go into sovereignty a little bit. So I'm just going to cover them very briefly because we're going to deep dive into them. But the sovereignty piece is so critical in the Celtic tradition. It just comes up all over the place, but at its core, it brings in the goddess of sovereignty. So that's, we're gonna, when we do the deeper teaching on sovereignty, I'll be looking at the goddesses of sovereignty, because there were particular goddesses in the tradition. But the overall motif is that the feminine, the goddess of the land, gave or bestowed sovereignty on the king. Okay, so any high king in Ireland, and this goes back, it's much more ancient than the Celts. It goes back pre-Celts, and it goes into other traditions, which I'll talk a bit more when we go deeper into it. But basically, the way we will work with this is, sovereignty is, let me say what it is first. Sovereignty is this capacity where we have brought into sacred marriage of our feminine and masculine. So the sovereignty starts with this dropping into our feminine. That's why it's rooted in Samhain. Sovereignty is rooted in Samhain, because we have to go in. We have to go in to understand, to listen to the depths of who we are, so that we become the highest authority in our lives, no matter what happens. And I'll give you an example. So say my partner has got an underlying health condition, so he is going to get he wants to get, if there's a jab for COVID, but I feel really deeply in my system, I don't want to get I don't want that in my system. So can I stand in my sovereignty and be able to just open to his perspective, allow him to have his truth, which is he feels he really wants to get what's it called? What is it called? I can't even think of it. That just shows you how far it is from my system.
Vaccine.
Vaccine, thank you. Yeah, so how do we negotiate that? How can I, like, before the woman that I was before, I would have just gone, oh God, I better get it. Like, I can't not. I'd let him down, and Jesus. Sorry, none of that. I'm so, like, my daily sit every morning, I sit, that's how I build my sovereignty, because I constantly sit and listen to what's here. So I know at the depths that is the truth for me, but it doesn't mean that I make him wrong, because he has his own truth. And as great Ken Wilber says, every truth is true and partial. So we learn that my truth doesn't mean it's your truth, but can I stand in my truth? And this is the really important piece around sovereignty, is when I drop deep into that, just like the goddess of the land, the sovereignty of Eru, she bestowed on the king. So the king is in the way I work with it, is our masculine. So at Bealtaine, at the end of the dark half of the year, at Bealtaine, the king and queen come together at the Bealtaine festival, and the sacred marriage happens. But first we have to bring our feminine online. That means I really connect with the depths of who I am. And then we bring in the king, and the king is very discerning. The king is the more masculine, and so it's from those depths. All my actions are rooted from my depths. They're aligned. So if the High King didn't rule, or didn't connect or rule from a place of integrity, then the land would not flourish, and it would create what was often called in the myths a wasteland. So it would become a wasteland, which is what's happened on our planet. So what we really need is in ourselves, can we marry this depth? So the goddess of the land, what she bestowed on was the spiritual and the ethical power of the king. The king had all the external, he had the external power, but she had the internal power of the spirituality and the ethical power, and she bestowed that on the king. So at Bealtaine, that's what comes, but it can't come until we've really dropped into our feminine. And if you've been working with some of the practice that from last 2 weeks ago, or almost 2 weeks ago, which is, can you pick up the feminine pole? Because most of us have been so socialized, and we're so in the masculine of overdoing, overscheduled, overfunctioning, exhausted, not knowing how to stop. That's where we lose connection to the depths. So we have to come back into the depths, and we work these 6 months really. I mean, little by little, we move towards the masculine, towards moving out into action, but we really go deep at this time. So that's the sovereignty piece. It's, can I be the highest authority in my life? Can I be discerning? And can I have agency in the world? So it's not just the feminine of being connected to my depths, but it's also, how do I show up in the world? So it's having agency, having discernment. That's being, and we'll work that with a couple of archetypal figures from mythology when we go into that. So that's the sovereignty piece. Then the sisterhood is an interesting one. It is really an important piece. It's like, it's our relationship to power as women, our relationship to each other, because we are our greatest allies. But a lot of what we have learned, and I was watching something recently called Miss America. I don't know if anyone saw it. It was basically about the second wave of feminism through the 60s and 70s, and how these amazing women stepped up, but none of them could they were great. They stepped up together, but then there was so much, they just couldn't align with each other, because they were all none of them would own their power, or very few of them. Some of them were trying to be too powerful, and others wanted to be powerful, but didn't own their power. So what happened was, it just was in disarray all the time. So it never were powerful within themselves, or together. Not within themselves, there were individuals that were powerful. So how do we move? And this has been a piece I've really had to work with in my own life, and myself, Lydia and Teen, have worked with this in terms of bringing Lydia and Teen in on this. Like, how do we show up together where we can really be a support to each other, where we can also challenge each other? But how do we work together, knowing that there are times there are going to be conflicts? Also, there are times when one person needs to step up into their power, and the other people need to fall back, and we can move in and out of that. And one of the big pieces around that is, how are you showing up, or where do you really want to show up in the pecking order? Like, do you want to be on top? And if you do, are you really saying that? Are you explicitly owning that? Because a lot of the time as women, because we have mostly more feminine essence, our attention goes more to the relational piece of, like, we better stay in connection. So I'll be working some stuff there around Carol Gilligan's work, who I love, who is a great psychologist in the States. She's in her 80s now, and she set up the first gender studies in Harvard. She's brilliant and has something great to say on some of this stuff, but also from my own experience of feminine shadow work. So we'll be doing that, and this will come up in your pods. I have no doubt if you're going to be in a pod with 4 other people for a year or so, let me tell you, the feminine shadow shows up. Not to be afraid of, because it's something that we can just learn from. It's a brilliant piece to just know about and bring it into this, and let's work it together. So the new sisterhood is, how do we, so I'll give you an example from my life. You know, when I set up the Celtic Wheel first, I remember somebody wrote a blog about Samhain, and I just kind of went, hang on, that's my work. Why are they writing about now, as if I owned Samhain and the Celtic Wheel? But I could see it. It was like, oh, hang on, it's this fear that I won't have enough. And it's like, so how do I stay generous in that? Notice that in me, that this piece that's really scared that I'm not one up on the other. That's the really important piece around some of that. That's one of the really important pieces around power and around how we are with each other. And are we really being upfront and frank with each other? And can we learn how to do that? And know that there are times when I will be on top and others will be under, but can you also drop back and be on top, be one up on our sisters? And can we all through that, can we stay in relationship with each other? So that's the sisterhood piece. Just checking the time. How are we time-wise? The last piece is in service. I'll just quickly, in service is really, how are we in our sovereignty, through our sisterhood, how are we in service to the world? What are your gifts? Every single one of us have gifts. Every single one of us have something to bring out into the world. So that's the piece in service, but we're also in service to our soul. So as soon as we lose connection to our soul, we can't be in service to anything else. So this is soul work, big soul work, bringing us into those 3 areas. And I think I'll pause it there, because I think that feels like it's enough for tonight anyway. So, but before we go into, you're going to go into your pods now. Before you do that, I just want to check, is there any questions about that, or have you any wisdom yourself about it? Let me know. Yeah, Kate Gaffney. I'm saying your second names because there's different Kates and
with us. Hi,
yeah.
everybody. Just, you said there, Mary, your last sentence, I think, as soon as we lose connection to our soul, we can't be in service to anybody. And that just really pulled me in. I'm wondering if you can say more, or is that something to explore a little bit later?
I'll definitely explore it later, but just to say, you know, when we're not connected to our depths, when we're not orienting our lives from there, we get lost in others. And part of the sovereignty piece will be, you know, me where I end and you begin, or you others begin. And if we're, you know, our tendency is a feminine shadow. Our tendency is to get lost and enmeshed in other people, in other people's problems. It's because we care so much. It's because, you know, it's care that is the shadow side of care. So that's the tendency. And if we're not rooted at the depths of who we are, knowing who we are, knowing what our soul really, where our soul wants to place us on the planet and in our lives, then we'll just get caught in distraction, and get burnt out, usually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and I'll go into, like, it's my definition of soul, or definitions that resonate with me. You may have a different definition of your soul, but soul, you know, is the psyche is the Greek word for soul. So there's lots of ways of looking at soul, but I'll talk a little bit more about that
Thank you.
when we talk about the sovereignty piece. Okay, thanks, Kate. So we've a couple of more hands raised, I think. Let me see.
Yeah. Is that okay to go ahead?
Yes, please.
I just have a question around, when you talk about sacred marriage and the sovereignty, and it's more from a male point of view. And when you were talking, what popped in my head was, what about men in our lives and how, we're going through the cycle, we're going through the wheel, how do we bring them with us if they're willing, if they're open to see our journey through that wheel? And how do they also have their sacred feminine and masculine merge in a way?
It's a great question. But again, for me, it comes back to the sovereignty piece. It's like the more I connect with myself, the more I have a sense of myself, the more I can be in relationship. And if I hear what you're asking, Marie, is that it's like, is there a fear that they won't, that I'll change and that I'll be brought into this place and they won't come with me? Or just give me a sense of...
It's more that I think I'm set in my sovereignty, but I can see where could that same, should they go through, well, I don't know how to express it, but should they also go through that journey of, we're bringing masculine and feminine together, but they're the same, they're feminine and masculine as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, by me, as you're saying, by me staying in my path, can they get into more touch into their feminine side, especially now at Samhain? Is that the right time for them to also explore that?
I think the right time for them to explore it is when they want to, when they feel the need, rather than us deciding that they need to. That's been big. Otherwise, we're still in the fixing, oh, they should do that. Like, one of the great things I've learned from my own sovereignty, because I was the greatest fixer, is to just stay in my own and let them do whatever they need to do. Let them, like, I want to take sometimes my great fella and like go, this is what you should be eating, and what are you dressed like that for? And did it like, no, just what happens if I just let him be himself? What if I just let him be himself? I stay here, I stay in this, and notice all the parts of me that want to turn him this way and fix him that way. And you should be more masculine. I notice when I'm thinking he should be more masculine, I wish he was more masculine, I go, okay, where can I show up more masculine in myself? What's asking? I'm always looking inward, back to me. Where can I be more masculine in myself? So what you want him to do, you do yourself. And that has a resonance that changes. That's what's happened to me in my life. I've certainly seen that. And that's us taking responsibility. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Lovely to have you back. So, Marion.
Hi, and hello everyone. I suppose I just want to say thank you, and as a follow-on, Mary, to kind of Kate's question earlier with regard to in service to our soul, that really resonated with me. And for me, I suppose what I'd add maybe is that if we live our lives where we're not aligned to our own values because we've effectively lost ourselves in others, that's what uproots us, and ultimately that's how we kind of wither, or move towards collapse, or whatever the right word is. Do you know what I mean? So I suppose I'm a bit behind my practice, but I'm enjoying the crunching of the leaves. But I get this though; it's very real for me. So it's wonderful to be part of the community, and thank you.
Great, thanks, Marion. Lovely to have you. Lovely to have you here. And that's great. I love that image that you use of rooting. It is rooting into our depths, into our soul, and then you just don't, there's a way that really you're centered and oriented that you lose, but you keep coming back to. It's not a steady state all the time, let me tell you, in my view anyway. It's not a perfection. That's a really important yeah, important thing. Okay, so that looks like all the hands, and thanks for your questions, and because it's all really great to tease all of this stuff out. So we are going to now put you into your pods. Da-na-na-na-na-na. Who is going to be in your pod? So I'm going to hand you over to Lydia to do this piece.
So we might just pop to Teen first for some priming before you go into your group.
Oh yes, sorry, I skipped it.
It's all good.
Sorry, Teen. No worries. I'm frantically trying to get you into your pods anyway. So I suppose we'll just take a couple of minutes just to kind of within yourself to kind of, because what we're going to do in the pods and when you're meeting now is to set the container, but also I want you to just take a little bit of time, just a few minutes as a individual inquiry or reflection to what's your intention, overall intention for the wheel, and then looking at, because we've obviously set the agreements and the ground rules for the main container, but obviously within your own little pod there's going to be certain things that you need to do, rules you want to put in order to feel safe and supported and challenged. So that's kind of, if you have a think about what is it that you need from this pod, and just take a couple of minutes to do that, to just maybe take a pen and paper and just write it down. And with those questions, you're going to go into your pod. And I'm handing over to Lydia.
So we just do that for like 3 minutes or so. So Lydia's just put those questions in the chat.
Hi, Sharon. So, so we're just taking a couple of moments for personal inquiry, just you and your notebook around what's your intention for the Celtic wheel and what are some of the agreements or ground rules that you would like in order to feel safe in a group. And then we're going to move into a group now in a few minutes. So just to say, as we begin to transition, if you have chosen not to be in a pod, just hang on, bear with us, and then you will be looked after separately. So as Mary said at the start of the call, we're sort of essentially working with two groups here. So just to speak about the pods for a few moments. So today's pod is about setting the container, about getting clear on how are you going to be with each other. How would you like to be in relationship with yourself in the group and with each other in the group for the rest of the year. And you're going to talk about that and have an explicit conversation about what are the agreements and the ground rules that you need and that you each need in order to feel safe in the group. We say safe, and it's safe in order to feel challenged, in order to be supporting each other in your growth and development throughout the year. So when we go in there, the first question is going to be, and this is designed to help, it's like to short circuit the usual intros that we do around our story, and actually to build a deeper connection straight away. So this is a question taken from Authentic Relating, and we'll be sending this into the groups, but it's what's a thorn, a bud, and a rose for you in your life at the moment? So a thorn being a challenge, a bud, what's something new, what's arising for you, and a rose, what's going really well. So that'll be to get your conversation flowing, to get your relationship ignited, and to get a bit of connection going between you all. And obviously introduce yourself too, but just that question is a nice way of short-circuiting that sort of, what do I say at the beginning? Well, obviously share your story as much as you want to, but it's not essential tonight. And then the purpose of tonight's call is so that you come back to the group with 5 ground rules that you have decided on that you would like. And it's not, these don't have to be in concrete, these can change, but it's just for what has arisen. The harvest from tonight's conversation will be 5 ground rules or agreements. We have our ground rules and our agreements for the bigger group. Everything from play, patience, deep listening, confidentiality, no fixing, allow silences, have an open heart, honor each other's time. So, and they're examples of how we want to be in our collective. So yeah, so what type of ground rules do you want in your group? And when we come back, we're going to invite each group, so in each group, assign a timekeeper. So you're going to be in there for 30 minutes, assign a note taker, and assign a facilitator. And as Mari said, these structures and roles are so helpful for when we come together. I think of them as scaffolding. We put these structures in place as scaffolding so that then we can actually flow and relax and inhale and exhale, lean in, lean out, and have a dance in the middle of all of this scaffolding, knowing that there is a structure there that's holding us. So for the note taker, when we come back to the main group in 30 minutes, we'll invite you to just stick into the chat the top 5 agreements that you've landed on. And then we'll just see what's happening in the whole field. And then another thing just to say, Team mentioned it already, do exchange your contact details with each other if you want to facilitate a meeting outside of the deep dive. You'll get each other's full names anyway. Excuse me. So you'll be able to look each other up. But just, yeah, if that arises in your group, it'll be easy to do then. And then, yeah, so then we're going to come back after the group and after this, and then have a chat in the larger group with Mary. Anything you want to add there, Mary?
Just to say, Teen, I don't know if you noticed, Louise in the chat just had put something in there. She wants to join a group, just in case you missed that.
Already done.
Oh, great. Okay, of course. Why do I even ask? And then, no, just to you make a decision. Like, do you want to meet outside these calls? You're always going to be you're meeting in these calls anyway, but some people may not want to. So just have that maybe discussion as well. So yeah, that's just a reminder of that. And, this is the beginning, it's really always like, oh God, I hate meeting new people, or I love. There's going to be extroverts and introverts. Really be aware of that. Our differences as well as, and there are people who are going to want to talk lots, people who don't say a lot. And it's going to push your buttons at times and all of that. So it's like we're welcoming all of that because that's what life is about. And we can learn in the safety of these how to do this, So there you go. Oh yeah, Malvina, we'll put those. Oh yeah, so Ruth, thank you, Ruth. Timekeeper, what are the roles? Timekeeper, note taker, and like a facilitator.
And Carol, just to confirm that we aren't able to give you, we're only able to give you everyone's names. We won't be giving you their contact details. So you need to exchange that within yourselves. So are there any other questions before you go into your groups of what to do in there with your new comrades and sisters for 30 minutes?
Lydia, can I just ask a quick question?
Hi, Lara, yeah.
Could you remind us how often the deep dive calls are? Is it every 6 weeks or so? Because that'll help us to decide how often to meet outside of that.
Exactly. Yes, it is. It's every 6 weeks. So every 6 weeks there is a Celtic festival, and around that festival we'll be having a ritual call and a deep dive call.
Thank you.
Cool. Quick 3 things you mentioned to structure the talk. Yes, that's the facilitator, the note taker, and the timekeeper. Could we have a quick summary again? Pod rules and thorn, bud, rose. That's it exactly, Kate. So you're going in by way of introduction, you share the question, and we'll type, I'll type it in now. What's a thorn, a bud, and a rose that's going for you in your life at the moment? What's a challenge? What's new? And what's going really well? So give me a second. There's that question. And then that's by way of introduction, spend a few minutes on that, and then just have a conversation about how do you want to be in relationship? What are your agreements? And the idea is you come out of the conversation with your 5 shared agreements for the structure of your container going forwards. Cool. All right. And
the only thing that I want to say actually is so obviously some people aren't here tonight. So you may be in your pod may not be complete. But you'll in the spreadsheet itself, you'll have the names, and then either in the next deep dive, you'll obviously connect, or if you want to find each other in between in the Facebook group, just to make sure.
Yeah, and just you're going to go in for 25 minutes. Okay, that's the other thing. So we'll do 25 minutes. Yeah.
Great. So we'll see you back here at 10 to 9 and have fun. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. We're offering these pieces as structures so that you can then relax and let go and just enjoy connecting with each other. Cool.
So whenever you're ready, team.
And for those not in the pods, just stay in the room, and we'll once everyone is in the rooms, we'll talk to you then.
Tina, welcome back.
Hey there.
Lovely to see you. I'm just admitting everyone who's in the waiting room from. Yeah. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Are we all back? Yeah, we are. 103. Great. So yeah, just we've a couple of minutes left to just anything that might have come up or you want to ask about that maybe in your groups was unclear, or that you might have a challenge about. Just, is there anything you want to bring in here before we bring this call to a close? So again, I think the best thing is just raise your hand in participants at the bottom of your screen. Click raise hand. If there is. Claire, you look like you're searching for something.
I clicked the wrong button and clicked myself out of my group before giving my number.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, so stuff like that needs to, so if you want, if you're on Facebook, if all of you are on Facebook, you can do it that way.
Yeah.
Just do it in the chat right now, in the private
or
chat.
in the
here.
chat.
That's what I'm looking for names. It's just going really slow. Thank you.
I sent you a private message
yes.
on the chat.
Thank you, Grania.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, great. So those who are, yeah, you're putting in your 5 agreements. You might not have come up with 5, and that's fine. But yeah, just it's nice to see them, and we'll be able to look and see what matters to everybody. So while people are doing that, if there are any questions or anything that, you know, challenges that came up while you were in there, in terms of, oh, I wonder about this, just feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. No fixing, I love it. Respect boundaries. Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't look like anyone has a question.
So just to say that actually the pods itself are now in a separate in the workbook in a new sheet. They're all listed there with a number and the names. So then if you're unsure of the names and stuff like that, it's all in there now. So you can see that. Go back there as well.
Great, and so we'll share that with you in Facebook, so that you can access that. And you can see, I mean, you know who's in your group, but you know, it's good to have that as a reference. The other thing is, you know, there might be that some people don't want to meet in between these calls in your pod, and some people might. So feel free, like if 2 of you still want to meet, then meet, you know. You know, you don't have to be in that configuration of 4 all the time. That's really important. Again, just work with your sovereignty. And some people are not going to be able to meet every time if you do meet outside these calls, and that's okay. That's why we wanted to put 4. It's square. 4 is square. So it's, you know, it means that if you can't meet it be at all the meetings, that's fine. So just work as rivers flow. Work with what comes up if you can. Okay, great. I'm loving a lot of things repeating themselves, which is great. You can see friendly and fun, like that. Okay, one of the things I really notice with groups is, like, when we come into groups, a lot of the time we come in and we're more in that more guarded space, and that's to really allow yourselves to be in that. And then the more we share and the more we go through, our shared humanity really connects us. So just know that will happen. The more that we connect with each other, that great force of shared humanity it often happens in retreats. You go into a retreat and everyone's a little kind of guarded, and then as you kind of drop in and share more, it's just all this skin encapsulated ego just kind of melts away, which is lovely. Okay, so it doesn't seem like there's any other questions or anything from that. This call was very masculine. We had to be kind of like on it, even though because there was potential to be a lot of spillage around. So this is the first one. It's always to set up the container is so important. From now on, we'll be more in the flow of it, and we'll be deepening into mythology and into some of the other more modern wisdom as well, with the ancient wisdom. So yeah, and to have the 2 hours, you'll have a half an hour each of these calls to really be in your group together with some inquiries that we can work with in your groups. So yeah, so we'll bring it to a close now. I'm just aware of the time. 2 announcements I want to make. So Dolores Whelan, my great teacher, there's going to be 4 calls with her at close to each of the equinoxes and the solstices. So I'm going to put those dates. We'll send you those dates. We'll put them in the Facebook again. The first one of those is on the 13th of December. So it's going to be just a week in advance of the solstice. It's not these are all just, if you want to be here, be in the call. We'll be recording them if you can't make it, so don't worry. And then the other thing that really came to me once I had opened the wheel was I just felt a real desire to offer embodiment, bringing in yoga and meditation and some movement for each of the cross-quarter days or each of the seasons. So the first one is Samhain. We're going to embody Samhain. It's really bringing it into the body. That's this Friday. So that is 6 o'clock Dublin time. So again, we'll send out, I've got those dates, and we'll send those dates out to you. With 4 of those, we'll be embodying Samhain, embodying Imbolc, embodying Bealtaine, and embodying Lunasa. So yeah, I just thought it's a nice place for us to gather and practice together. It's just an hour, and to come into our bodies rather than listening and being on this. We'll just get into the body more. So yeah, if you're around on Friday, and again, we'll share those if you want to do them separately on your own at home either. Okay, so that is it from us. Thank you to Teen and Lydia. It's such a joy to have them here with us. Katie's on the call as well, but she's a participant tonight, which is great. But if Teen or Lydia, if you want anything you want to say before we go.
Just really noticing my heart opening reading the little mini harvests from your pod conversations, and this is when it's like, oh, I want to be in those. But yeah, so just thank you for being here tonight and for a gorgeous call. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. I'll see you on the mat on Friday, hopefully. So see you then. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Lydia.
same. Just kind of really grateful kind of to be here, and I'm glad kind of the first kind of pod kind of was it kind of went relatively. Sorry, that's the other person that hasn't been in here in the call. I'm glad it kind of went relatively smoothly, so it's not too many glitches. I hope. So yeah, just really grateful to kind of be here with you all. It's beautiful. So
yeah,
see you Friday on the mat.
Thank you. And dogs as well as children are welcome here. We have Max, Teen's dog, who's always a part of the wheel. Her hound, as a great druidess, always has her hound. So if you have a dog, that's okay too. And we have Daniel here too, so it's lovely to see him. So yeah, we will see, and those of you who are live on Friday, otherwise we will be meeting together on the 13th for anyone who's available for Dolores's the call with Dolores, and then we're going to have like a very special winter solstice call, because it's that day when Jupiter and Saturn move into Aquarius. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a very special ritual, because we'll move into the ritual in a way that really celebrates that piece too. Okay, thanks everyone. Again, like Lydia and Teen, my heart is open. Thank you so much. And yeah, be well, and you'll get your next practice for Samhain on Sunday. Loads of love. See you very soon. Bye. Do you want to open the mics? Yeah, great.
Bye. Hi, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was
Bye.
beautiful.
Bye. Thank you. Sleep well.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Good night.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Bye.